Hello everyone and welcome. Today I'd like to begin by talking about joyfulness versus withdrawal. Joyfulness is the state of being joyful, gladness. A very glad feeling, a great pleasure, delight, an expression of joy such as looks, actions, and speech. The definition of joyfulness is maintaining a good attitude even when faced with unpleasant conditions. Centuries of human experience have shown that material things alone cannot produce joy. Joy is not a result of external circumstances. Joy is the quality of one whose purpose in life eclipses the trials of the moment. Joyfulness is dedication to a purpose that gives meaning to suffering and purpose to living. It is the fulfillment that one thus established in life enjoys. Life must have a purpose bigger than pleasure hopping. In order to be fulfilled in life, each of us needs a sense of building that inner sense that my life is developing, doing, and accomplishing something. Without this, even the pleasure of life do not bring true joy. There is a difference between character and emotions. An emotion is a result. It is the subjective feeling caused by thoughts, words, circumstances, or experiences. Character, however, is the basis for a person's decision-making. Character determines how a person responds to circumstances. Joyfulness is a character quality. It is the quality of one who is not living for personal pleasure, but who has a purpose, as it were, from heaven itself. When such a person experiences difficulty, the sadness is real, but it does not dim the hope that enlivens the heart. Joyfulness is maintaining a good attitude even when faced with unpleasant conditions. The Bible says that the joy of the Lord is our strength. So we all need strength. So if we're going to be strengthened in our inner being, we must be joyful. The next character trait we're going to talk about is flexibility versus resistance. Flexibility is the ability to make needed adjustments, the capability of responding to change, a disposition of openness to new instruction, or adaptability. The definition of flexibility is not becoming attached to ideas or plans which could be changed by my authorities. The Latin word flexibilis comes from the word, or rather from the verb flecto, meaning to bend. Flexible bridges and skyscrapers endure storms because they sway slightly with the wind. Likewise, palm trees avoid destruction by bending in the face of tropical storms. Flexibility is the strength to flourish in a changing environment. The nature of flexibility is obedience to new directions, even though the old ones may seem more favorable. Flexibility differs from compromise, which is adapting to any circumstances. Flexibility is adapting to authoritative instructions only. To be flexible means not to get upset when plans change. It means to respect the decisions of my authorities. It means not to be stubborn. Flexibility means to look for the good in changes and flexibility means not to compromise that which is right. It is very important to be flexible, not to get upset when plans change. Children, for instance, all too frequently cry, complain, and even throw temper tantrums when they don't get their way. The character quality of flexibility recognizes that such behavior is wrong. It is not only wrong, but creates extremely difficult situations for both parents and teachers alike. Sometimes, these wrong behaviors are simply learned. Children learn that when they cry, they get their way, and when they pout, parents or teachers give in. Teaching flexibility helps to counteract such manipulative behavior by encouraging self-control, patience, and discretion. To be flexible means to respect the decisions of those who have jurisdiction over me. The fact is that children and students can't always understand the things and why they change. They don't share the same knowledge, experience, or maturity that comes with being a parent or a teacher. Regardless of how much or how little they do understand, they can still respect the position of authority over them. Flexibility shows respect for positions of authority by listening, asking questions, and controlling emotional impulses. To be flexible also means not to be stubborn. Stubborn means remaining stiff and fixed in one position. The original meaning of the word was considered a compliment. To use the word implied that someone was resolute and steadfast. In the fast-paced and ever-changing world in which children live today, the term refers to those who are obstinate, opinionated, or refuse to bend. Unfortunately, those who refuse to bend often break. To be flexible also means to look for the good in changes. Flexibility is optimistic in that it looks for the good in something. The word optimistic comes from the same Latin root as optimum, which means best. A flexible child considers a change in light of its benefits and looks for the best to happen as a result of the change. Even cancelled outings or rescheduled activities offer some kind of good. By looking for the good in something rather than the worst, a flexible child usually finds it. To be flexible means that I will not compromise what is right. While flexibility encourages one to accept change, flexibility does not yield to changes which are legally or morally wrong. Flexibility never excuses wrong behavior by blaming it on others, including authorities. It doesn't say, I was just following orders, because it knows and holds fast to what is right. The next character trait we want to talk about is availability versus dominance. What does it mean to be available? It means capability of being used. That state in which a thing can be reached or obtained. It means accessible. The definition of availability is making my own schedule and priorities secondary to the wishes of those I serve. The word available comes from adding the suffix able to a variation of the Old French term avaler. Avaler is derived from the Latin word ad, meaning to or for. An avaler, meaning to be strong or worth. Availability is the ability to add strength or worth to another person. It is the quality of one who stands ready to contribute his or her own strength and talent to those who need it. The one who receives that service is said to avail himself of those benefits. That is to say, he receives strength or worth from others. Just as a single strand cord is good, a two-strand cord is stronger, and a three-strand cord is even harder to break. Each strand benefits from the addition of another. Availability doesn't sit around dormant waiting for something to happen. Rather, it keeps people busy on their own projects, but with a readiness to change projects and priorities if necessary. It is similar to a river that powers a watermill. The energy is in the river all the time. It just needs direction to the right place. So to be available means to put others ahead of self. Also means to find a way to help, not a way to hide. To be available means to be ready when called upon. To be available means to be glad for the chance to serve. And it also means to check with the right person before I make commitments. So to be available means to put others ahead of self. Paul D. Moody wrote, "The measure of a man is not the number of his servants, but the number of people whom he serves." However, the concept of putting others first often goes against a child's nature. At birth, children see only themselves. In time, they overcome this attitude and recognize that others have needs separate from their own. By finding opportunities for children to serve their classmates, families, school leaders, or community, teachers can help shift their students' focus away from me first toward making others first. In the long run, that puts character first. To be available also means to find a way to help, not a way to hide. Walking home one day, a boy in Holland noticed a small water leak in the village dike. A leak that could be catastrophic if not stopped. But what could a boy his age do to help? He wasn't trained to repair a leak in a dike. However, the young man found a way to help. Despite feeling tired and wanting to go home, the boy plugged the hole with his finger. It wasn't until the next morning that someone discovered him with his finger still holding back the water. Others would have looked the other way or let someone else do the job. But the boy, by being available and finding a way to help, saved his village from disaster. To be available also means to be ready when called upon. Early in American history, Boston leaders recruited men who were willing to fight against invading armies. However, they had to be ready within a minute of being called. Thus began the legendary group known as the Minutemen. The key to their readiness was preparation. Like the Minutemen, successful students need to be prepared for the unexpected. By keeping their desks organized, they can find things quickly. By staying current on assignments, they can start something new without the burden of having to catch up. By being ready, successful students don't miss opportunity when it knocks. To be available also means to be glad for the chance to serve. To serve with a bad attitude is often worse than being no help at all. A bad attitude wears down emotions, creates conflicts, and makes others just as irritable as the offender. When children accept an opportunity to help, they must also accept the opportunity and responsibility to serve with a smile, cheerfully saying, "Yes, I'd be glad to," or "No problem, I'll do that right away," goes a long way toward making everyone's day a bit easier. To be available also means to check with the right person before I make commitments. Although children should be willing to help others, they must not make commitments without proper permission from a teacher or parent. If uncertain whether or not they can make a commitment, they can always say, "I'd love to help, but let me check with the one that is responsible or has jurisdiction over me, and I will let you know." Asking permission helps to protect children from making promises they cannot or should not keep. The next character trait we want to talk about is endurance versus giving up. Endurance is the capacity for bearing up under hardship. It is the state or power of lasting, continuing existence. The definition of endurance is the inward strength to withstand stress and do my best. The primary Latin root of endure is durare, meaning to harden, to hold out, to make last. The hardness of wood was described with this word, and the English word tree is also derived from durare. To create the word endurare, the Latin durare was coupled with the Latin preposition meaning in, thus indicating that this hardening is internal, not external. Endurance is not a rough, hard-faced external expression. It is an inner quality of firm resolve. Endurance enables a person to weather the storms of life and press forward in the right way. Endurance is a quality with a firm grip. It has little to do with physical strength. A tenacious individual or company will often outwork and thus overcome a much larger competitor. Endurance is hanging on with conviction. Endurance is not a stand-alone quality. One does not endure simply for the sake of enduring, but because of some firmly held conviction, usually expressed in a complementary character quality. For example, a father, weary of his job, endures year after year because of his responsibility to provide for his family. A young girl will work until her chores are done, whether or not she feels like it, because of her obedience to her parents. In ancient times, cities were protected from enemy attacks by massive walls. Invading armies relied on battering rams to break down such walls. Sometimes, however, fortress defenders placed large beams behind their walls in such a way that the pounding of battering rams only drove the wall supports deeper into the ground. The walls held more firmly after a battering than before. Such is an illustration of the inner strength of endurance. When our convictions are well placed, our resolve becomes only more firmly rooted when attacked. So what does it mean to endure? It means the inward strength to withstand stress and do my best. The next character quality we would like to discuss is attentiveness versus unconcern. Attentiveness means the state of being mindful or observant to what you're doing, being heedful of the comfort of others, or offering attention to. The definition of attentiveness is showing my worth of a person by giving full concentration to his or her words. The word attentive comes from the Latin ad tendo, which means to stretch. It refers to a horse turning its ears or a bird cocking its head to listen more carefully. A child best directs his or her attention by turning and facing the speaker. Attentiveness is a conscious effort made to concentrate more fully with every part of the body. Attentiveness is balance. Attentiveness is similar to alertness, concentration, and discretion, but it is helpful to distinguish the differences between these character qualities and learn how they balance each other. For instance, alertness is being aware of one's surroundings. If a pedestrian gives full attention to the crosswalk signal while walking across the street, yet is not alert to oncoming traffic, he or she could meet with tragedy. Concentration is usually all the senses to gain the most information possible. When not able to get enough information with one sense, a person demonstrates attentiveness by involving as many other senses as possible. Discretion is avoiding words, actions, and attitudes that can bring undesirable results. This quality is vital for identifying those to whom attention should or should not be given. So in conclusion, attentiveness is to look at people when they speak to me. Attentiveness is to ask questions if I don't understand. To be attentive means to sit or stand up straight. Attentiveness also means not to draw attention to myself. And ultimately, attentiveness means to keep my eyes, ears, hands, feet, and mouth from distractions. Attentiveness describes the concentration we apply to each of the five senses: sight, smell, touch, taste, hearing, and smell. The five commitments vital to the application of attentiveness. I pray that God would help us to develop all these character traits that we talked about today so that we may be good people, to be available to serve efficiently to those that God will open the opportunity for us to serve. Thank you for watching, and may God richly bless you as you strive for excellency to develop these character traits. God bless you.